The Tyranids are a race of alien predators who seek to devour every scrap of life in the galaxy. For eons, they drifted through the intergalactic void, hibernating as they made their long journey. Now they have awakened, and the tendrils of their vast hive fleets reach ever further into populated space, consuming world after world as they advance. Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com. And if you have been watching MiniWarGaming for any amount of time, you probably know that I am a big fan of the Tyranids, probably my favorite race in the 41st millennium. In this video, I want to give you a guide as to how you can start collecting Tyranids and start building up your force as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Now this is actually a two-part guide. This first video, which will be available for free, is going to focus on the quick and cheap. And then the second video, which is in the MiniWarGaming vault at the link below, will give you even more options of what types of armies to build. It'll focus on different playstyles that I have had fun with over time, such as the shooty Tyranids, or close combat Tyranids, or Gene Stealers, or how to go super psychic. And we'll also detail more about the different hive minds and the hive fleets and which ones I think are useful in certain situations. I want to put out a few caveats before I get started. The meta is constantly changing, and that is what is good and what isn't. The Tyranids have gone through a lot of changes, even since 8th edition has dropped. They've been super awesome, and they've been mediocre. Right now, I'd say they're in the mediocre range right now. They're not the worst, and they're not the best. If you're here for how to build the best tournament list, well, just shut off the video because I'm not going to help you with that. First off, because I don't really do tournaments, but second, because, like I said, the meta changes. Any advice I give you right now could totally change when the next Psychic Awakening comes out, or another Codex comes out, or if another edition drops. So instead, I'm going to focus more in this video on the cheapest way to start your Tyranid collection in a way that can still be useful for your games at your local gaming store or in your club. And then, like I said, in the next video, which will be in the vault, I'll give you even more options and delve more into each of the hive fleets and what you can do. I want to talk about what you should buy and a couple of recommended starting lists that will help you to save money. What I actually did is I made a spreadsheet of every single unit of the Tyranid list. I put their cost in US dollars, because that's the majority of our audience is Americans. And I looked at how many points they cost. Now, obviously, things can cost different amount of points because of what you give it, but I went for what I thought would be a typical loadout, or if there's more than one, an average amount of points. And then I was able to calculate the cost per point. And this ranged anywhere from 24 cents per point all the way up to about $1.30 per point. What you choose to buy can really affect how much money you're going to spend. For example, the two armies that I'm going to suggest today, which are both around 1,000 points, one of them is 400 US dollars, and the other one is only 335, and that includes the Tyranid Codex. So just by making some adjustments, we're able to save some money. So the first thing is the Tyranid Codex. It is a must-buy. Whether you buy it physically or digitally is totally up to you, or like some people, both, but if you're looking to save money, I would do one or the other. There's a second book, which is optional, but I highly recommend it. It's the Psychic Awakening Blood of Baal book. It includes the Tyranids and Blood Angels as well, and it gives you ways to customize your hive fleets. It gives you additional relics and stratagems. It's a great book, but I'm not going to include it as a must-have, just because you definitely don't need it in order to start your Tyranid collection, so it saves you a bit of money. So for the first list, we're going to focus on kind of doing an all-rounded list with some close combat, with some psychic, with some shooting, and some typical things that you're going to see. And then the second list I'm going to propose to you is one that's going for as cheap as possible, but still nice and powerful. Well, as powerful as you can with Tyranids right now. So in both of them, the first thing you're going to want to buy is the Start Collecting Tyranids box set. This saves you 36% off of the price of the individual units, but it does have a drawback, in that it does come with a Trigon or Moloch kit. So the Start Collecting Tyranid box comes with 8 Gene Stealers, a Broodlord, and then the sprue necessary to make a Trigon, a Moloch, or a Trigon Prime. Now, if you want to get your most points efficiency, then you assemble it as a Trigon, which you could also use as a Trigon Prime. Because the Trigon Prime with the upgrades I would recommend is about 168 points right now, whereas a Moloch is only 104 points, which means you'll have to buy more things. On top of that, a Trigon Prime is actually decent. So it's not a bad addition. Broodlord and the Genestealers are great additions to your army. I love Genestealers. I think they're one of the more powerful units in the Tyranid army. Now, to supplement this, we need several things. First off, some more Genestealers. So another box of those. That'll get you another 8. And then we're going to be bringing a Hive Tyrant kit into this. Now, I have it for this first list to be assembled as a flying Hive Tyrant with 2 twin-linked, or 2 sets of 2 Devours. So you end up with 4 of the Devours. Obviously, you can play around with exactly how your loadout is going to be. Some people like the 2 sets of 2 Devours, so you've got that 24 shots at strength 6. Other people like to bring in the Heavy Venom Cannon, and then bring the Relic from Blood of Baal, which lets it always get its maximum number of shots. Others will want to assemble it as a Swarm Lord, which actually is in our second list. The Swarm Lord is even more points efficient, or cost efficient, because he costs more points, but he's in the same kit. Either way, for this first list, though, I'm recommending a Flying Hive Tyrant with some sort of ranged weaponry. And if you're not sure which one to do, then do the 2 sets of Devours. And if you have access to magnets, well, magnetize them, so you could actually swap out for a close combat Flying Hive Tyrant and a couple of the different loadouts for the weapons as well. To round out our troop choices, because we want to make sure we're building, I always want to make sure we're building a battalion to start, and then we can go from there. We have a box of Hormagaunts, so there's 12 of those in that box. And then for an elite choice, we have a unit of Hive Guard. And Hive Guard, as much as they cost more per point, as well as the Zoanthropes, they provide incredibly good firepower in your 1,000-point army. So all in said and done, we're looking at about $400 for about 1,000 points, or in other words, about 40 cents per point. And then with the optional Blood of Baal. Now you might ask, do I need to buy the cards? And those are optional as well. You don't need them. They're just reference. They've got your psychic powers, some of your stratagems. It's nice to have them for the tactical objectives, I will say that. But the tactical objectives are in the book, and so you can just use a regular deck. If you don't have a regular deck of tactical objectives, then sure, why not buy one of those as well? But I'm not including that in the initial cost because it is totally optional. Now, the strength in this list is combining some close combat abilities. So your Broodlord and 2 units of Genestealers are going to be working together to move up the field quickly. And then you've got your Flying Hive Tyrant, which is super fast and can put out a lot of good firepower. It's more mid-range firepower, so trying to take out infantry, but it can even go after some lighter vehicles as well. And then to help add a bit of punch, you've got your Zoanthropes, which are really good with their Smite ability being extended to 24 inches. And you've also got your Hive Guard, which have some very good abilities as well. Now, one thing you have to think about when you're building a Tyranid army is having enough Synapse creatures, because the Tyranid rules are that you have instinctive behavior on everything that's not Synapse. And if they're not within 24 inches of a Synapse creature, then they need to shoot at or charge the nearest thing or suffer a penalty. Furthermore, if you're within 12 inches of a Synapse creature or 18 of a Hive Tyrant, you are fearless. You don't have to worry about taking leadership tests and running away. That makes those super cheap toughness 3 Hormagaunts that much more resilient. And same thing with the Genestealers being close to the Broodlord or any of the other Synapse. Now, to help out the Synapse, that's why I recommend running the Trigon as a Trigon Prime. Not only is he a bit more beefy, but he does add that 12-inch bubble of leadership, of fearless, and then 24-inch bubble of the no instinctive behavior. And then the Zoanthropes add a bit more to that. The Hive Guard will have to kind of keep up with everything, but they can team up with the Zoanthropes to have some mid-range shooting right there. So it's a good all-rounded list. Not going to win you tournaments. Well, it's 1,000 points, so you're going to need to add more to it anyways, but which we'll discuss in the second video. But this is a really good starting point. Good place to, you're gonna have to get all this stuff painted up anyway, so that I would recommend just stopping there, getting that painted, get a few games in, decide what your playstyle is going to be, and then that can help tell you what you're gonna do next. Now, if we wanna swap that out and turn it into a super cheap list, well, this won't be the most cheap or the cheapest list you can build, because I don't wanna just tell you to build a garbage list because that's the cheapest army that you can do, but this is pretty darn close. So we start with the Codex, of course, again, and we throw in the Start Collecting Tyranid box, even though, once again, I'm not a fan of bringing the Trigon or Moloch or Trigon Prime for the first part of your army. It can be added in later. We're going to add on a Swarm Lord, so you're still going to buy that Hive Tyrant kit and assemble it as a Swarm Lord. Or once again, if you got magnets, assemble it and magnetize it so it has the wings, and you can just have it standing with wings, and that's fine. and also have it with the different weapons. But if you're only going to do one thing for this one, the Swarm Lord is such a good one. A little overpowered, probably for 1,000 points if you're playing against your friends, but the Swarm Lord is a must because he has an ability which is fantastic. Besides the fact that he's a really good psyker, super good in close combat, and not bad at being resilient, especially once you later on purchase some Tyrant Guard to protect him. He's got an ability that in the shooting phase, he can nominate a unit, and that unit can move again instead of shooting. And so he basically slingshots units forward. This couples up with the Gene Stealers really well, because he'll move up with them. Gene Stealers can move, they move 8 inches first off, but they can also advance and charge. So what you do is you roll their advance when they go to move, and then the Swarm Lord gets them to move again, and they add that same advance. So if you roll the 3, now their movement's 11, so they'll move 11, and then the Swarm Lord will let them move 11 again, and they can still charge. So even if you roll a 1 for their advance, they're moving 18 inches and can still charge. In most games, that's going to get you across the table and allow you to get into the thick of things right away. And then, or you can just use it on himself and slingshot himself forward, or you can do both because he can do it every single turn. The other thing that we're going to add in here is 2 more boxes of Gene Stealers. Now, the reason we're not just going to buy 2 more Start Collecting Tyranid box sets is because that's getting us too many Trigons, and you don't really need 3 Broodlords. Even when I go for like an all Gene Stealer list, you're going to have 2 Broodlords, maybe a third at 2,000 points, but most likely just the 2. So we'll have 3 units of 8 Gene Stealers in total to round out our battalion, or you can shift them around so you have units of 5, and then take those extra 6 and make a unit of 14. That way you have that kill squad. So unit of 5, unit of 5, unit of 14, but you could play around with that according to what your missions are going to be or who you're playing against. And then lastly, throwing in 3 Hive Guard again, which once again, I didn't choose the cheapest thing, but they're just too good to not include in our first list. This just gets us up to about 950 points for $335, dropping our 40 cents per point down to 35 cents per point. Now, obviously, points cost can change whenever the new chapter approved comes out or a new edition comes out. Points do get adjusted. But when I look back on the history of the Tyranids, even back in 7th edition, these were solid choices back then too. They're the core choices. Gene Stealers are always going to be a core choice. Hormagaunts are always going to be a core choice. The Hive Tyrant's always been good. The Broodlord's always been a good support. The Trigon, he's gone back and forth between being super awesome and mediocre. And then the Hive Guard have always been a solid choice. Sometimes getting a little better, sometimes getting a little worse, but always a solid choice. Now, when it comes to the Hive Fleet that you want to paint them up as, my suggestion to you is to not paint them as a specific Hive Fleet. Instead, make your own color scheme. And that way you can change up which Hive Fleet you're going to play them as without feeling that you're being cheesy. You want your color scheme to be as lore friendly as possible. And so that's why at MiniWarGaming, we have our Sentinels of the Forge Space Marine chapter, which is not a standard color scheme, which means we can play it as whichever one we feel like. Same with my Tyranids. While they're close to the Kraken color scheme, they're not exactly the same as the Kraken color scheme, and so I can play them as whatever I want. But don't be one of those guys who has them all the same color and says, these ones are Kraken and these ones are Behemoth and these 2 separate detachments. Just don't be that guy. If you must play with more than one Hive Fleet, then paint them differently to distinguish between them. In fact, I think that's even a rule for playing in the ITC tournaments or other tournaments, that they'll actually require you to have different color schemes for different Hive Fleets or different chapters or different sets or whatever you happen to be playing for your 40k army. Let us know in the comments what you think about that. What would you actually suggest if somebody's looking to get in cheaply and quickly? What should be the 1,000 points that they purchase for their first 1,000 points for Tyranids? And after you finish watching this, go ahead and click the link below or above to watch my next video, which is going to go more in depth. It's going to help you build up to 2,000 point lists and talk about the different kinds of playstyles and make suggestions for how you can use the different Hive Fleets to bolster the strength or lift up the weaknesses of certain ones of those lists as well. So that'll be in the link below or link above, whichever it happens to be. If you're watching this on TV or something, you can just go to MiniWarGaming.com. You should be able to find that video in the MiniWarGaming Vault. And if you're not a Vault member, well, you can still go there and get a free 7-day trial to the MiniWarGaming Vault. It is what allows us to operate as a business, so you can help support us by becoming a Vault member today. And if you're a Vault member already, thank you so much. You have no idea how much of a difference it makes to us to be so. So until next time, may the hive mind take over the entire galaxy. Make sure you wash your hands, Keep the nasty virus away. We want Tyranids, not Nurgle, and happy wargaming.